Steve Daughter here. How the heck you doing this fine day? And welcome to Gray Matters, the podcast for baby boomers and Gen Xers. And I will tell you something which I think is increasingly becoming a kind of in short supply in this day and age. And that's real leadership. I think a lot of us, for whatever reason, taking on any mantle of leadership seems to be fraught with new and increasing challenges. Challenges largely brought on by social media. It doesn't matter who you are, the ability for people to attack you and to be critical and to do it all under the veil of anonymity, I think has got a lot of us maybe taking a step back. And I don't think that's right. I know that nobody feels really good about that. So probably we don't spend a lot of time thinking about it. We probably don't spend a lot of time thinking about our role as leaders. And instead we concentrate on other things. Well, not today, and not on Gray Matters, and not with my co-host Viveka von Rosen, who is going to bring the topic of leadership with her special guest to Gray Matters today. So you tell me the topic du jour today for your guest is leadership.
Yeah, I've known Cammie for a long, long time, and she's actually my business coach. And it was so incredibly helpful to reposition where I was in my business using some of the strategies that she talks about today. And I think as entrepreneurs and business owners, we have different ideas about what our schedules are going to look like and what's important and what needs to be done. And then as far as leadership, a lot of us feel like being solopreneurs, well, we're what I'm leading myself, but it's not about that. It's about leading in the community that you're in.
Now, did she coach you through your transition?
She did. Yeah. Actually, I knew I was going to start my transition, and that's when I signed up for her. It was one of those synchronicity things. I had listened, and I never listened to those, like half day free things. And I jumped on hers. I was like, she's the one. I want to work with her. And so I actually was with her for 2 years.
Okay. Looking forward to this.
Yeah.
Let's jump into it. You and Cammie talking about leadership.
Leadership. Excited because today I get to interview my business coach, Cammie Gildner. Her one message to the world is that women's voices matter. She's a connector, a storyteller, a business coach for high vibe women like me. I'm reminded that like a little over a year ago when I launched my new business, yours was the first podcast I was on. And so I feel like we've come full circle, and I'm loving that you are on the podcast with me.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Well, let's talk leadership.
Yeah.
You actually just posted a great article, a great newsletter, but I'll let you tell our audience about it. Leadership is really important right now for men and women, and
Yes.
especially for those of us who are entrepreneurs. How do you be a leader if you're a solopreneur? If you're just an entrepreneur or solopreneur, like how do you be a leader?
You're a leader of people, right? All day long, we are leaders of people in our businesses. So as entrepreneurs, we're leaders in our industries that we serve. We're leaders in the clients that we serve. And when we stand up in that voice of what we stand for, we definitely are stepping into our leadership abilities, right? And we need to be, and right now we're needing so much of that too. There's so much noise out in the world all around us. And it's how do we come into this space of being grounded in what it is that we stand for and owning our voices and the messages that we want to be taking out in the world, the kind of messages that really change lives.
So what do you say to entrepreneur or solopreneur who has just kind of started their journey? It's maybe a side gig, and they're not feeling it yet, right? They're not feeling their ownership and their leadership within their business, in their industry. What's some advice for them to step into that role?
So if they've stepped into a role as an entrepreneur, they've got a whole lifetime of experiences that they're bringing to that place, right? They're not just fresh out of it. They're bringing all these life experiences with you, right? All of your life experiences, your stories, and what you stand for And you know that there's a reason you probably, if you're new into the world of entrepreneurship, that you've taken that leap. There's probably something internally that's called you there. That's what I see most often. Is that, it's people just, they want to make an impact with the work that they do and the voice that they have. And so what I often will see is people forget they have all these years of experience that they're bringing forward, and that gives you a lot of credibility to stand on.
Yeah, you talk a lot about visibility and voice, and
Mhm.
playing small obviously doesn't cut it anymore.
No. No.
And so, yeah, increasing that visibility and your voice and
Exactly.
owning, right? All those
Absolutely.
years.
Yeah,
I
it's like
love
knowing what it is that you wanna stand for, and I think that's one is, as you know, I talk about this a lot, is like if the whole world could hear one message from you, what is that? And that if you can find clarity in that message, what you'll do is you'll be able to really build your messaging platform around that core message that you wanna stand for, and it's not a marketing message, it's not a positioning statement. It's
Yeah.
actually something that gets people to stop, think, and act and do differently. And it's like really having that clarity around that will give you a platform to stand on as a leader as
Yeah.
well.
I love that so much, your one message to the world. Some people might think of it as your why, and I think there's the why is at the root of it, but that's
Mhm.
not the whole message. And like you
Right.
said, it's not a mission statement or a vision statement. And so it took me over a year to get mine, which is women's words will change the world. But once I got that, and this was on your advice, like that is the heart of everything you do. You need to make sure that every blog post you write, every podcast you're on, every piece of content you put out there, every program that you share, that has to be aligned with your one message. And that's
Mhm.
been so important to me to just like, does this align? Then no, it's out, right? So
Yeah.
I
And
love,
it's conversational, right? It opens up the door to a conversation. And, the deeper you go into it, it's like, well, let's talk about why that matters to you. And it's like all of your pieces of what you teach and what you bring into the world follows along with that.
so Cammie says leaders lead with visibility. Get visible, show up boldly, and let your audiences feel your steady presence every day, all the time. So I love leaders leading with visibility. But you also talk about leaders prioritizing self-care, and I have to say this was one of the things that really drew me to your work, because we can all be successful if we're working 24/7.
Yeah. And
But we
we
get
don't
to a
want
s
that.
we don't
I don't want that.
I definitely don't. As coming off a cruise of 9 days, like, I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, more of this, please."
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why we want to work to live, not live to work. And
Yeah,
all day
yeah.
long. Yeah. Yeah.
You
And so
say
that
self
self-care is so important.
Exactly. You say self-care isn't indulgent, it's essential.
Right.
So talk a little bit more about that.
Well, I came out of the corporate world. It's actually been 16 years since I left the corporate world behind. But I was working 80-hour weeks when I left the corporate world. And so I was pretty clear when I decided I would start my own business that I didn't want to work that kind of hours ever again in my life, because I was drained and I was burnt out. And, to be honest, I am a doer. I love to roll my sleeves up and do. And once I get onto a project, as we were chatting, I've been working on my website. Well, I've been actually working over the weekends and I never work weekends, right? I never
Right.
work weekends, but it's been 0 degrees here in Colorado. And, I'm like, well, what else am I going to do? But it's a creative
Exactly.
project. It's a creative project, right? But
Yeah.
when I go to when I think about really making space for myself, I had to learn to slow down. I had to learn to open up white space on my calendars and give myself that space and be good with it and say, okay, I'm going to go take a walk in the middle of the day. I'm going
Yeah.
to, do things that are good for my mind. I meditate every morning. I think I'm on almost 200 days of consecutive meditation on insight timer.
Yeah.
And, and so it's like I do those sorts of things on a daily basis to take care of myself. And I think it's really essential to being the best that we can be. I eat well. I work, I look at what I'm putting into my body
Yeah.
and I'm cognizant of that. And it's like these are our vessels that we have to treat as, like they're gold, because that's how we show up in our best lights. If we're not taking care of ourselves, we can't serve our clients well. We can't serve ourselves well. We can't see big pictures and big visions. We can't be that leader if we're not taking care of ourselves first.
It's obvious, but so many people don't do this, but you can't pour yourself into others if your own cup is empty.
Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
got to fill it up. You've got to
Yeah.
fill it up.
And
I
so,
love
like you just came back from your 9-day vacation, which
Yeah.
is fantastic, right?
Yeah.
Because we need that space away that enables us to like just cleanse of all the things. I mean, it's not even just our lives, it's the world around us and all the noise that we
Yeah.
get hit with on a regular daily basis. We're being hit with so much information. We have to have cleanses from that.
We do. We do. Being surrounded by miles and miles and miles and leagues and leagues and leagues of water.
Yes. Good for the
And
soul.
having no internet.
Yeah, good for the soul.
It's so good for the soul. Now, another thing you talk about is leaders listen with curiosity. And I
Mhm.
know personally, when I was the LinkedIn expert, when I had my business LinkedIn to business, I was kind of like, I was burned out because I wasn't learning anymore. I wasn't really listening. I was like, I'm the expert. I know everything there is about LinkedIn, blah, blah, blah. And I really it burned me out and it stifled my growth. So I love that you talk about listening with curiosity. And curiosity is a signal that you're not just there to sell, you're there to serve. So let's talk a little bit more about this
Yeah.
and using curiosity.
Well, and where this came up even this week was this, we've been having a lot of discussions about what's going on in the business world, what's going
Yeah.
on. And so there's a lot of shifts and changes happening really rapidly.
Yeah.
And being able to understand where our customers, how we'll just take DEI for an example, because that's a
Yeah.
lot of my clients were having conversations with their clients last week. What is your stance on this and how do we support you? And tell me, what you're grappling with. And so that they could be there as a servant in the midst of these kind of conversations, right?
Yes.
And that's where that point came from was
Yeah.
because I was seeing it happening with my clients. I was seeing it happening in communities that I'm a part of. And so big conversation. And we can instantly jump to, okay, this is what I believe, and just dive in.
Yeah.
And it doesn't actually serve us if we stop and we pause and we say, what's happening in your organization, or what's happening for you? As I work with a lot of coaches and consultants. What's happening? So my curiosity is what's happening for you with your
Yeah.
clients. How can I support you? Right. And so always asking that kind of question
Yeah.
and being curious about the conversations and really showing up as the leader to be able to lead that curiosity versus like being on the backside of it.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And, not to not to go down this rabbit hole, but obviously America is very divided right now.
Right.
And there's not much listening and there's not much
Exactly.
curiosity. It's like you
Right.
said, my way is the only way. And I've asked questions. I'm like, okay, I'm like, please tell me, like, it doesn't make sense to me, but can you tell me why you think that way? And I'm genuinely interested because I need to understand how people can do the things they do and what's motivating them. But there doesn't seem to be a curiosity on any sides. And then you talk about this too, about staying focused and grounded. It's like you hear a lot of rhetoric, but there's not a lot of openness to that collaboration and to coming back together. It's
Yeah.
kind of a my way is the highway. And that is not, it's
I
a,
would agree.
it's not a great place to lead from.
No,
My
and it's
highway.
and if you show up as you're not actually showing up as a leader if it's my way
Right.
or the highway, right? It's a leader has to actually hear the people in in the conversation, and
Yeah.
you've got to have conversation, and
Yeah.
conversation, you know, I know you've heard me say conversation creates, so
Right.
conversation will be that. You know, the more we can have conversations that sometimes are difficult conversations, sometimes
Yeah.
they're a bit stretched, and sometimes I don't like I can tell you, I don't like difficult conversations. I
I
would much just
don't
as
think
soon go
anyone
over.
does. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't know about that, but they're probably not listening though, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's
So it's like, how do we show up in those kind of conversations and
true.
break through some of the walls that we have in front of us right now? I think it's those walls are really difficult. And, you know, I've experienced walls in my family. I've experienced walls with friendships. And it's like, how do we show up here, listen, open up to conversations, and lead from a different approach?
Yeah. Yeah. And I love what you say, collaboration strengthens us all. And I feel that's absolutely true. And I just feel that collaborative spirit is lacking right now. So as leaders, we really need to find the tendrils and fish them out and start to weave them together and build the bridges. I mean, that
Totally.
is what leadership is about
It
anymore.
is.
That's some powerful stuff. I know I've been watching the Landman series, and
I love that show.
I know I love
You
Tyler.
know, I came out of the oil and gas industry, so but I'm like, that's not what a landman does, but you know.
Yes. But we still
But
love Billy Bob. But you know,
exactly.
it's interesting because you can see Taylor Sheridan always gives himself the best monologues in you know in all of the shows that he's written and then performed in. And so I was listening to his monologue in Landman, and I was like, I didn't agree with it, but I was open to it because he's a brilliant writer. I was opening to list. I was open to listening about it, and it it allowed the curiosity piece again, right? Allowed me to go, okay, I can see where they're coming from and I can
Mhm.
understand what they're saying. And even if I don't agree with it 100%, I can see the common ground there enough that we
Yeah.
could build a bridge and have that conversation, right? And
Yeah,
and
totally.
I it's so important. It's so important.
I didn't know he did that. I'll have to go listen to that.
Yeah, it's when they're sitting in they're all the gas heads and landmen are sitting around the table and they're talking about solar energy and how sucky
Oh,
it is, basically. And
gotcha.
so that's yeah, that
That
Sheridan
part
is
of it.
actually
Okay.
the one guy who's talking, yeah. So he gives his monologue and I'm like, yeah, of course. He does
Yeah.
the same thing. It's like, I'm gonna write the TV show and I'm gonna give myself a monologue in it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like you, my family is kind of divided politically and you know, and some of my clients are divided politically. And, you know, we have to find that area of commonality that at least gives us the ability to have conversations again.
Exactly. Exactly. I
Yeah.
would agree with that. And we also need to find our truth. And I think that's part of when I was
Yes.
talking about the focus of like finding what
Yeah.
our truth is in the mix of things and
Yeah.
keeping that focus and how we want to lead.
Yes.
Because we do have choices to make.
Yeah.
And doesn't mean that we don't have conversations, but we do have to find our platform that we want to stand on.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then one of the things, of course, you like me, we focus on women
Okay.
and women in leadership. And I love this. Companies with women at the helm consistently outperform their peers, with studies showing that they are 21% more likely to achieve above average profitability. Women leaders tend to bring diverse perspective, foster innovation, and create inclusive environments that drive sustainable success. So I'm literally reading Cammie's. These are Cammie's words. I'm reading.
And that's it. Well, it's out of McKinsey, right? That's out of McKinsey report.
Yeah, that's McKinsey. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
McKinsey. So, you know, what do you think is the reason for that?
Well, I think it's because when you do have diverse people sitting around a table, you're bringing different ideas. And it's like, if you think about product development, I mean, I think that's the best example of, right, like the development of a car, for example.
Yeah.
If it's all, if you have diverse voices at the table,
Yeah.
you're gonna have a different car created than if you just have, single white men around the table. So
Exactly.
it's so that diverse voice helps create better products that serves half the population. Or, I mean, you can slice and dice that in so many different directions. But to me, it's like how, and what I love about that McKinsey report is that it actually says companies thrive better financially from an economic perspective when there's diversity at the table. And that at the bottom line is all day long.
We want to
Exactly.
If that's the only important thing, it's, let's at least go with that.
Yeah.
You're going to make more money with a diverse, inclusive board, with a diverse, inclusive workforce. I know. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I could go down a whole rabbit hole there.
I know. Could we though? I had a thought about that, but I had many thoughts about that, but they just left my head. Anyway, doesn't matter. We can come back to it, and I'll just edit that part out. Yeah. So what are some things that you would say, kind of to wrap this up? What is your best advice to an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, man or woman, who is moving into leadership, who may or may not have a team, but has a voice within their community? What are some final words of advice? What would you tell them?
Well, I absolutely believe that every one of us has to have the voice. We have to understand the voice that we want to own, that's ours to own. And then put the visibility behind it. Step into your visibility. That's your fire in your brand. And so if you have clarity around, this is what I stand for, this is who I serve, you do all the customer journey work, and you're speaking what I call your client's love language, because you're like deep into their customer journey. So that whole process of defining what your voice is, some of it's thought leadership aspects of it, some of it's really your client attraction language that you bring. Some of it's building that brand from the inside out. So you build these layers of your voice and your messaging. Once you have that, your visibility is that fire that will help you get out there and be seen and be heard. And that's what's going to spark the growth in your business all day long is that, getting onto stages, getting onto podcasts where people can find you and hear what your message is. And then I think the only other aspect to this is to make sure that you have the right packaging and pricing, that, as you're getting visible, exactly where you're bringing your clients into the mix. And that right packaging and pricing is going to help you grow the business that you really want to grow. And that's also going to give you the time the time prosperity and the wealth prosperity, because if you are undercharging in your services, you're going to just be in this rat race. So really find the way that you've got the right business model for your business that gives you the space to really build a business that you love.
I love that. Well, I want to thank you so much for being such an inspiration to me, and now being an inspiration to this new audience. We'll have all of Cammie's contact information in the show notes. Is there any final things?
I'm just going to say, you're an inspiration to me, Vivica. I admire so much what you're building, and I've always admired you. I've known you for many years, and I've always admired you. And so keep lighting up the world, because you do.
Oh, thank you so much. As do you, as does everybody in this audience. Keep the light shining, because you do good in the world and you are meant to shine. Thank you so much, Cammie. I really appreciate your time spent with us today. I know everybody else does too. Everybody else, keep shining.
So Viv, I think you set us up talking about leadership is not necessarily about leading people. It's about for me, leadership, it kind of, for entrepreneurs, it's how you lead your business. It's how you decide the direction of your business. And then I guess it end up, tell me if I got this right, it manifests itself in how you treat your customers. It manifests on the decisions you make on your product. And I wonder if like in sports, the real test of your leadership doesn't come from success. It comes from when you're having a tough time. It's from when you're making a tough decision. It's from when things aren't working. It's how you handle those situations. Because even if it's just you, internally how you reacted and what you did and whether or not you are up for it again. Like if you get through a tough time, you have faith in yourself.
Yeah.
Right? But if you're a whiny, snivelly little, and then you got through it just by luck, but not by force of will, well, that's not going to give you the confidence next time. You have to provide, like almost split your personality and provide leadership to yourself at that point.
Well, yeah. And, there's two things that are popping up for me right now. The first we talked about at the beginning of the interview, which was your one message to the world. And I think that is the pinnacle that you can hold on to pull you through, those tougher times. But also I loved what she said about, is that one message to the world reflective in everything that you do? From how you treat your clients to what your website looks like, to the messages that you're sharing on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. And if it's not, that's the disconnect. And that's where we lose our leadership. And the other thing is, as I was listening to it just now, I feel like legacy and leadership could almost be interchanged here, because legacy is not like the monument you leave behind, which is what a lot of people think of. It's how you are in the world. And if you are integrated with your message, with your one message to the world, now you are walking in leadership and you are leaving a legacy. So that occurred to me, that legacy and leadership in this case are very, very similar and most definitely dependent on each other.
It's interesting how you're drawn to the really high level messaging stuff, whereas I'm drawn to the low level, super practical, like this happens here. And so the kind of the last area that I'll bring up to you is you guys talk a lot about self-care.
Yeah.
Which you talked about, which to me, was when I first heard it, I went, okay, it's kind of tangential. But then I thought, wait a minute, no, leaders show their leadership through how they value people, how they value the individual, right? A big part of that.
Yeah.
That's why people are drawn to leaders. And you're an individual. Like a leader, you have to do it for yourself as well. So whereas a lot of entrepreneurs believe in sacrifice is the direction, and leaders display sacrifice as well.
Oh yeah.
But they think sacrifice is the pathway to success. Whereas what you guys talked about is in real leadership is taking care of yourself and making sure you're in the best possible place.
Oxygen mask on first, right? You got. How do you take care of your clients if you're burned out?
And that's a hard sell. Yeah. That's a hard sell because I don't know. Is it imposter syndrome that makes it difficult for us to invest that to kind of give ourselves that grace? I don't know.
I don't think it's imposter syndrome, or if it is, it's ageist imposter syndrome. I think it's our age, because Gen Xers and Boomers, we were like, do it ourselves. We're going to do it. We're going to crush it. We're going to, and we're so self-dependent. And so the idea that, conversely, we have to take care of ourselves in order to serve others. Well, no, we were always about serving others and doing the work and getting it done to the detriment of ourselves. So I think it's our age group that has a problem with this. I don't think, and if I don't know why you would be, but if you happen to be a millennial or Gen Z listening to this, let us know.
Go away. Go away. If you happen to be just go away.
But I don't think it's an issue with them. I think they know how to take care of themselves.
Our parents have a lot of explaining to do because it's their fault. This is the way they raised us. This is the way they raised us.
Thing, right? Born with the key around my neck, and I took care of myself.
Yeah.
But not in a good way.
We need psychiatrists on next. That's our next thing.
I think so.
They got to pull apart these these rat's nests in our head. Vivica Von Rosen, you are a treat. Thank you so much for that, for bringing the Cammie to us today. We appreciate that, one and all of us. I'm speaking for the entire pod community right now. Till next time, that is it for Gray Matters. We will see you next time. Until then, have fun storming the castle.
In the castle.